And now back to our main story, the Sunday talks between Presidents Trump and Zelenskyy, and today's reactions from Moscow and Europe. To discuss this, I'm joined by our Europe editor, Marcin Zaborowski. Good evening, Marcin. Welcome to the show.
Good evening.
So we heard earlier what Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk said after the talks. It is a success that the US declared to participate in security guarantees for Ukraine, but the conclusion of peace talks is still far off. Is this pessimism justified?
Well, I think it's not quite. I wouldn't call it quite pessimism. I think it's kind of a healthy skepticism. I think that we have a grounds to be optimistic about the U.S. engagement in the process, and we have grounds for optimism regarding Ukraine's willingness to go far with compromise. But we don't know how far, if at all, Russia is prepared to accept any of the conclusions which were being reached yesterday, and without Russia being at the table and without Russia accepting any of that, there's just no going forward. So, and we don't know, and I think that we don't. I think that it sounds like that Russia is sticking to its hardline position.
But even if we put that aside for a moment, Russia's approach, are we, is Europe, is Ukraine satisfied with what was agreed in Florida between Trump and Zelenskyy? Both said it was huge progress.
Well, this is a very imperfect situation, very imperfect reality. So Ukraine is at war, it's exhausted. The Ukrainian young men do not want to serve, so Ukraine does not have initiative in this process. And the European public opinion and American public opinion especially are growing tired of war which has been lasting for such a long time. And of supporting Ukraine. So, given that, I think rather imperfect conditions, I think the fact that the Donald Trump actually committed a considerable time of energy and time to solve this issue, sit at the table with Jared Kushner, with Steve Witkoff, with the Secretary of State. It shows that America is very serious about being a mediator in this process. Not so much a part of a pro-Ukrainian coalition, but a mediator at this point in time. And following the Berlin discussions, it looks like that Europeans are ready to step in and provide security guarantees and provide troops, or at least air support when it's possible and when it's needed.
But what do you make of these comments from President Trump that, Putin wants Ukraine to succeed? We could see how Zelenskyy reacted to this statement. He held his tongue, but obviously his expression was, that this is nonsense.
We all know it is nonsense, really. So this reaction is not. It's not surprising, but under Trump administration, United States has changed its position in the whole process. So under the former administration of President Biden, the US was really part of a pro-Ukrainian alliance or coalition, if you like, however, without concluding result. Then Trump comes in with a very different approach, with his experience with the negotiations and mediation, and he shifts the position of the United States from being an ally of Ukraine to being a mediator. And being a mediator, he cannot take sides. So even when people at the press conference say, how come that you think that Russia could want peace if it led this massive attack on Ukraine only a couple of days ago? And then Trump responds to that, yes, but Ukraine is also attacking Ukraine, responding to that. So that's a clear indication that he wants to mediate, he doesn't want to take side. Which is not to say that it will not deliver results. If that's what's gonna bring some kind of at least a cessation of fire, then it will be a huge success, of course.
Right, I want to come back to what you just said, that there's no movement on Putin's side, but I was intrigued by a comment by the Ukrainian head of intelligence, General Budanov, who said just before the talks that while Putin may remain obsessed by the war, his immediate entourage, particularly the business people, are lured by the carrot of deals that President Trump and his negotiators are dangling before them. So we saw Kirill Dmitriev, who has been one of these businessmen involved in the talks, surfing in Miami. So, my question to you is, do you think these business people have enough influence to actually push Putin towards some kind of a concession?
Well, I think it's clear that the world of business wants peace and wants this war to stop and wants to go back to business as usual with the United States, with Europe, and with the rest of the world. There is no doubt about it, but at the same time, the world of business in Russia is dependent on the will of President Putin, who has to deliver something which looks in his mind as a strategic success. And for now, it's President Putin which is calling shots. It's him who's deciding who actually stays business, who's out of business. So the oligarchs are not going to run against President Putin on that, and he still remains the man in charge for now.
So in other words, if I understood you correctly, you're saying Putin is not going to be swayed by his entourage.
Exactly. That'll be my reading of that. I think that
I'm sorry, Marcin, but that implies that we're back at square one, because despite all the mediation efforts by President Trump, if Putin doesn't move an inch, then Ukrainians will not move either, and so it seems like a race to who will hold Putin's ear, President Trump's ear at the latest moment.
Well, the truth is that we are all speculating here, because what's happening is really at press conferences that we see is part of a game, is part of a negotiating game, and even things like Russia running this massive rocket attack a couple of days ago is also part of negotiations. Or today's claim that Ukraine was responsible for attack on President Putin. That's, again, a negotiating tactic in my view. So what's happening behind that is another matter. And yes, there are growing pressures on Russia to come to some kind of agreement, to pack the success that it has. It already has 20% of Ukrainian territory. I think that President Putin is already in a position when he could say, I went to this war and I got what I wanted. But whether that's enough for this man, that's another matter, really.
Marcin, we're running out of time, so last question, and please try to be concise. How do you see the Europeans handling this overall?
I think that we can be pleased with the way Europeans have been handling the situation, especially with ramping up, their strategic and defense abilities, and also inserting themselves into the negotiating process.
Marcin, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And that's all we've got for you, but please stay on with TVP World for more news and analysis.